Hey, it's Janky Jolteon. Continuing with Ren's spoken masterpieces, I will go over Eden next. Ren has talked about learning and dabbling in many spiritualities and religions, looking for answers. His work has a heavy Christian influence, as most Western European and subsequent cultures understandably would, which is the same reason I think that his story here is a good example to get his point across. He does not skew a single bit of the original story here. He just puts a different perspective on it. I do have to appreciate his analytical approach to it. Like any religion, you have to remove centuries of mistranslations and personal stakes to uncover the messages intended for you. I would consider myself agnostic, to put it simply. For a more complicated answer, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of over 150 spiritualities and religions, and am writing a book. Omnism and animism more closely define it, but I also believe that labels on spirituality is what only creates new boxes for people to limit themselves to. These boxes are one of the biggest contributions to the divisiveness of us as a species.
Where are we?
This is Cohort, Brian. Same year, same time. But in this universe, Christianity never existed, which means the dark ages of scientific repression never occurred, and thus humanity is 1,000 years more advanced.
I want to put a disclaimer that I do not have a problem with Christianity, which some of my comments may suggest. Frankly, I have an excessive amount of church trauma. I do find value in spirituality, but believe that organized religion is one of the things holding humans back from advancing as we should. There is no problem with believing what you do. I don't care if you're atheist, agnostic, Christian, Hindu, Satanist, or pagan. The problem lies in believing what others tell you is truth and militantly insisting others must agree with your version of the story or are less than. So with that said, let's get into Ren's interpretation.
It's time. The story of Adam and Eve. It starts with a God who wanted more. God had just created the heavens and the earth. He had the angels by his side, but they had no will of their own, and so the autonomy to love or reject him was never theirs. All but for one. The one's called Bringer of Light. Lucifer, Morning Star.
Lucifer was described as different from the other angels, though it was never clear as to why. Ezekiel 28:12 describes his beauty and intelligence. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. 2 Timothy 2:26 specifies his free will, and that they will come to their senses and escape the trap of the devil, who has taken them captive to do his will.
Lucifer was the fairest and most intelligent of all the angels. He was the closest thing to God's image, and in his likeness, Lucifer felt restless. He began to question and doubt God. He doubted the hierarchy opposed upon him. He felt God was arrogant. In his frustration, Lucifer built a throne that stood even above God's and declared mutiny.
Lucifer never quite described God as arrogant, but he himself was deemed as such for his beliefs. After the fall, Lucifer was deemed as Satan, Hebrew for adversary. He didn't quite build a throne or directly declare arrogance, but metaphorically intended to, similar to the story of the Tower of Babel, both holding severe punishment. Isaiah 14:14, I will ascend the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High. With that, he was described as being prideful, his most notable sin. Language is interesting in the fact that it loses meaning and evolves over time. Note that Lucifer's goal was to be like the Most High, not surpass him. When you remove the concept of Lucifer being evil, but consider rather he had a different goal from God, it reconstructs the story. I do enjoy Ren's spin on this, because history is written by the victors, is it not?
A war ensued. God, being all-powerful, came out the victor and banished Lucifer from the heavens and exiled him to earth.
It's a common misconception that Lucifer was cast to hell. Isaiah 14:12 and Revelation 12:9 both clarify that he was cast to earth as punishment. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to earth, you who once laid low the nations. The great dragon, ancient serpent, was hurled down to earth, and his angels with him. The concept of hell did not arise until much later variants of the text. Reflected in Revelations 20:10, the concept of hell was likely built on the passage of time. It describes Satan being cast into a lake of fire and brimstone, but as in most ancient theology, the concept of hell didn't quite exist, and later translations rephrased it. Predating the Hebrew Bible by an estimated millennia, the Sumerian epics contained similar stories as the creation of man and the deluge. Originally, hell was called Sheol, and the description was closer to the Sumerian concept of Kur. This did not involve fire and punishment, but underground caverns that reflected a transpositional version of life on Earth. This description is common among many disconnected theologies, like the Greek Tartarus and the Maya Xibalba.
Once again, God was alone with his power. Perhaps from loneliness, perhaps from curiosity, perhaps from a desire to share love, God began to work on his greatest project yet, a being that would mirror himself, the human, two humans specifically, Adam and Eve. They were placed inside a paradise built for them on earth, the Garden of Eden.
On the topic of Garden of Eden, there are quite a bit of overlaps in other spiritualities. A paradise separate from the concept of heaven. Egyptian Aru, Greek Elysium, Welsh Anun, and Zoroastrian and Hebrew cosmology elaborate their paradise as the state of earth before corruption. Ren does gloss over the fascinating concept of Lilith, which, to be fair, is a bit irrelevant to his point here, but the Bible contains contradictory accounts of the first people created. According to Jewish mythology, in the alphabet of Sirach, Lilith was Adam's wife before Eve, and the name was later translated as a she-demon. In Genesis 1:27, a man and woman are described as being made simultaneously. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. But in Genesis 2, the creation of Eve from Adam's rib is elaborated on as a latter event. Gilgamesh in the Halupu tree, Anana shows an interesting overlap with Lilith and strives to protect a sacred tree while working with a serpentine creature. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Song for a Sage elaborates on Lilith, who was only vaguely mentioned in the Hebrew Bible in Isaiah 34:14 as an assumed well-known demon, to terrify and confound all the spirits of destroying angels and the bastard spirits, the demons, Lilith, and those who strike suddenly.
In the garden, God placed a tree that bared fruit that would grant anyone who ate it powers bestowed only to a God, to tell good from evil, left from right, to live righteously or to sin. He named this the tree of knowledge. God told Adam and Eve they could eat whatever they wanted in the garden, but never the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And if they disobeyed him, it would be punishable by death.
To note, God states that eating the fruit would cause death, which is implied by making humans mortal. Genesis 2:17, which states, "But you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." Genesis 3:5, "For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." This seems a bit like a red pill or blue pill scenario to me, rather than a threat of punishment. Mortality with knowledge, or eternal paradise with strict borders. An interesting overlap is the Norse concept of the goddess Ethan's golden apples, which grant the mortal gods eternal youth and vitality. Unfortunately, with the texts only reflecting the Skald's poems from 13th century onwards, it's hard to separate what was Christian interpretation and what was historical beliefs of the people.
The basic way the story of Eden is told is that Eve was tempted by Lucifer in the form of a serpent to eat a fruit from the tree of knowledge. Convinced, she bit the fruit, she passed it to Adam, and he did the same. Suddenly, ultimate knowledge filled their minds, and they realized they were naked and felt shame. God discovered this betrayal and felt angered. He exiled Adam and Eve and cursed them with the life of a mortal. They would work, they would bear children, and they would die. The fate of a human. Now look deeper.
In the story, the serpent tempted me, by telling me I would gain ultimate knowledge and that God would spare me.
Both were true.
This wasn't some great deception, meaning that Satan, in the likeliness of God, perhaps understood his intentions. In fact,
The only lie uttered in the
Garden of Eden was
by God, who did not end up
condemning
Adam and Eve to death.
death,
This could be seen as an act of
mercy, but the sheer fact that the tree existed and that humans
were initially cut off from this knowledge.
may imply some part of God was afraid that if humans were granted the gift of perception, they, like Lucifer, would have the power to reject him too.
The only angel depicted with free will, and he wanted humans to have the same. 1/3 of the angels even followed him in this mutiny. This is also quite similar to the Sumerian story of Enki, who went against Enlil to save humanity.
The fact that there stood a beautiful tree that could
grant this knowledge in the first place
implies that a small part of
God, supposedly all-knowing,
perhaps wanted and intended
the humans to
bite too.
In the Bible, Satan was an exiled angel of free will. Humans are exiled
descendants of Adam and Eve.
also with free will. Not only have we shared a similar fate to the devil, we were also both constructed in
We
the
were
image of
also
our
both
Creator,
constructed in the image of our Creator.
meaning our behaviors, in some shape or form, imperfectly echo his.
We could assume that this kind of
God has his doubts,
But-
but as the most
powerful
Being in the universe,
he has no one above him
to turn to with questions, and no one to
Doubt but himself, an incredibly lonely and isolating existence.
We must only assume that the common thread between God, Lucifer, and us is the desire for more, an eternal curiosity, a desire perhaps birthed from a seed of loneliness. If not, why would we exist in the first place? The constantly looping bittersweet irony is whether gifted by some omnipotent God or simply a byproduct of billions of years of evolution.
I think it could very well be both. You know, I think religion has drastically evolved just as people have fought wars and gone against each other, stolen each other's stories, rephrased them through translations. I think the evolution of the texts we see today are also a vital point of disconnect, but who knows what happened before that.
Here we stand, in 2023, as creatures with free will, the only creatures that understand and define good from bad, creatures with the potential of a god. And what do we do with that free will, my friends? We willingly walk to the edge of a cliff. In the name of progress, we jump off the precipice.
I love the tie-in to his original Sick Boy song there.
The empires we build ravage the earth. The natural order of things are necessary to survive. Any systems which do not honor homeostasis eventually perish.
Anything that doesn't support homeostasis, as in, someone's always profiting off this, and when the power shifts, so does the collective opinions of what needs to stay the same and what needs to change. And I feel like that's why we've stalled where we're at for quite a while now.
our free will overrides our own biological instinct.
We can take more than we eat. We can kill more than we need. We can willingly create weapons with the potential to burn everything we built.
To quote my own book, The Epic of Astoria, how did we get from the earth-conscious lifestyles of ancient animism to dropping bombs on each other for worshipping the wrong ancestor? We are the only creatures that pay to live on this planet. We fight endless wars over lines only we can see, and children starve in an era of overproduced food and accessible trade. We have created a world where our biggest threat is ourselves, and we take advantage of that. How can a species so advanced let things get so out of hand?
To the ground, we willingly decide to bow at the altar of greed, the most insidious and destructive of all sins. We put our faith in corporations who pose as rulers. We willingly allow ourselves to be led by outdated power systems ran by corrupted politicians
And bloated dictators who claim domain and dominion over an open and free land.
We willingly elect the corrupted when the decision was always ours to build something better. We willingly create and impose separation because of beliefs that we are force-fed through our phones and television sets. We always had the will to reject these things, but we adhere to them as though they were the laws of physics. war, famine, pestilence, greed. These aren't things imposed upon us by an all-powerful God or by his demonic adversary. They are here because of us, not because of free will, but because of our inability to use it. We must be motivated to be better, not out of fear of punishment of an eternal damnation, but because the choice exists, because we love ourselves, because we have the power to absolve ourselves of so much unnecessary suffering. Take a second to be in this very moment. In this moment, how much suffering is happening all over the planet right now? How many people are dying of illnesses that could have easily been cured, but aren't because of the selfishness and greediness of humanity? How many people break their backs and reject their own passions to simply afford bills and food? How many of us crave distraction from existence? How many of us numb that pain in whatever way necessary? How many children are being abused? How many people sleep cold and hungry on the streets? How many of us become cogs inside a machine that is destroying itself? How many soldiers have been forced to fight in meaningless wars? How many humans have killed for ideals they don't believe in or understand? How many people have died for the greed of another man? And how much of this was avoidable? As written in the Bible, Satan was not condemned to hell. Satan was condemned to earth. He lives there amongst other creatures with free will, who always had the choice and still chose their own undoing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our self-made hell. The bittersweet irony is this is a creation of our own design.
You know, I've always been on the thought that Earth is essentially purgatory. You know, we have the free will to decide what to do with our lives, but also the free will to prioritize ourselves over the greater good. And I think that's where the majority of our problems come from, is people stopped looking at our species as a collective and how it could benefit them. And when that gets to bigger scales of power, that's exactly where all of our problems come from.
I'll leave you with this. Consider what you have done here today. You have worked together as individuals collaborating to form a giant neural network, a hive mind capable of achieving incredible things. We have lent on each other's strengths to solve puzzles and decipher riddles, and we've done so to win money. Imagine applying that same spirit and determination to creating the closest thing we have to paradise here on Earth. By using the power of collaboration, we can work together to even the playing field for everybody. Our dystopias can become utopias. Our Jahannams can become Jannah. Our hells can become heaven, right here on Earth.
So, I think that perhaps the idea of God isn't his own being, but a collection of humans working together to accomplish the same things that the biblical God can. You know, our power of coming together as a hive mind, when we could all get on the same page, I think we can have the Garden of Eden back.
And this sentiment applies to atheists, agnostics, and believers alike. Myself, I'm an agnostic who believes. I believe in us. We must do better because we can choose to. We must be better simply because the option exists. Thank you.
Yeah. As Ren says, keep that kind heart kind. Humans are in need. Thank you for watching. This was the last spoken thing I'll be doing the interpretation of because it's the only ones that I've seen available. The rest of my interpretations are going to be more based on his music. Like and subscribe. I'm Jinky Jolteon, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Ren at Ren Makes Music as well. Thank you.